We're joined by Mike Buckley, senior journalist and political commentator, joining us live from Sheffield in England. Mike, of course, it was bound to be pressure on Keir Starmer after Rishi Sunak released his tax details, and now we've seen Starmer's. What do you make of it?
Well, I think two things. I mean, one, I think this shows Keir Starmer in a good light. It shows that, I mean, he's clearly wealthy compared to most people, but he's certainly far less wealthy than Rishi Sunak. And that will make him seem a little bit more like a normal human being, I think, to a lot of people. But it also shows that he's paid a decent rate of tax. I think he earned 275,000 in the last 2 years and paid 118,000 in tax, which is, around, 30 or 40%, I think. Not sure of the exact percentage, but he's paid a good chunk of it in tax anyway. Whereas Rishi Sunak earned far more and paid a very, comparatively very small amount of tax, I think 21 or 22%. And that's not, nobody's saying that Rishi Sunak broke the law, but I think this is highlighted, A, that Rishi Sunak is very rich, B, that, Keir Starmer is less rich, has paid a lot more tax, which makes him seem more like a decent human being. But it also does highlight the UK tax regime. No one's suggesting that Rishi Sunak broke the law, but what is evident is the fact that the law and the tax regime in this country favours the rich. It means that the income of the rich is taxed far less than the income of the poor. And that's because poorer people, normal people, tend to get their income through doing a job, through a wage, which is taxed at a certain rate. Whereas wealthier people, they'll have shares, they'll have investments. They might have an investment fund in the US like Rishi Sunak. They might have income from dividends, from some kind of investment, whether it's property or whether it's something else, or their own company. And those things are taxed at a much lower rate than income from a wage. And I think, understandably, people think that's unfair. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if this starts a debate in the UK about whether that's fair or whether it isn't, and it clearly isn't. And that may result in action from this government to normalise or equalise, tax rates. Or if not, I would be very surprised if it wasn't something that the Labour Party committed to do after the next election.
So do the general public you assess really care about this? Do you think this is likely to become one of the big themes ahead of the next election?
I think people are aware already that Rishi Sunak is incredibly rich because of the story you mentioned about his wife from a year or two ago. So people know he's rich. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to support him. I don't think people mind their politicians being rich, but they want them to be competent. And clearly Rishi Sunak is desperately trying to show that he is competent, which compared to Truss and Johnson, his two predecessors, is not particularly hard, I'll be honest. But he is attempting to do that, and fair play to him for that. But I think people do very much in the UK, and I'm sure across the world, care whether people play by the rules or not and have a strong sense of fair play. And I think Labour will try and use this to say, look, this is just unfair. And whether Sunak, was obeying all the rules and the laws or not, this is unfair. He's in effect paid far less tax than the rest of us do. So whether this hits Sunak personally, I'm not sure. But I think it will start a debate in the UK about what is taxed and the rates at which things are taxed and what's fair and what isn't fair. And I think that will be a good debate for us to have.
Mike Buckley, senior journalist and political commentator, many thanks for your insight.
Thank you.